Hi, I'm Ken Leone, Marketing Manager for Stock Rover, and welcome to today's webinar, Finding Great Stocks with Stock Rover. One of the biggest challenges investors face is how to identify what stocks are good candidates for investment. And then once stocks are identified, how does an investor go about ensuring that they've done the proper research, generating a solid foundation of pertinent information so that they can make an informed investment decision? First, a little housekeeping. This webinar assumes you have a fundamental understanding of Stock Rover's navigation and core capabilities. If you don't, I would encourage you to watch the introductory videos in the video section under the Help menu. I'd also recommend checking out our blog and our help pages, as they both contain an incredible amount of useful information. All right, so let's jump in. Let's assume you haven't identified a specific stock or a set of stocks to research. How do you go about targeting tickers? The answer is screeners. Screeners allow you to target and filter stocks that meet specific investment criteria. The Stock Rover's filtering criteria is comprehensive, and it contains well over 600 screenable metrics which cover price performance, financial and operational metrics, as well as sector and industry metrics. While you can certainly create your own screeners, you'll want to start by selecting from any of the many screeners included in your Stock Rover account by default. There's also over 100 screeners in the Stock Rover library. Let's start by picking a particularly popular screener called Strong Buys. Also, let's take a closer look at the screener's criteria. This is what's known as a ranked screener, which is unique only to Stock Rover. This screener is returning stocks with a margin of safety greater than 25%, a sentiment score greater than 75. We can see that Stock Rover is weighting these two metrics equally. Weighting, again, is unique to Stock Rover, and it allows you to assign a level of importance, a weight, to a given set of metrics, making them more impactful when ranking the stocks. You'll note that the MACD indicators aren't weighted at all. They're selecting the initial population of stocks that will then be weighted. Stock Rover will then return the top 50 stocks with rankings based on the 50-50 weighting of margin of safety and sentiment. Below, we see our passing stocks. We can also narrow our population of stocks even more, perhaps to just the top 25. Let's sort on rank. And let's use the tooltip to look at the top ranking stock, Natural Resources. Its margin of safety is in the 98th percentile, so 98% of 50 gives it a score of 49 out of 50. And for sentiment, 95% of 50 scores it at 47.5. So we add the 49 and the 47.5, and this scores the stock at number 1 at 96.5 out of 100. As you can see, the Stock Rover screener does all the heavy lifting. Keep in mind, you can use Stock Rover's screeners as is, or leverage them as starting points and create new or different screeners. Let's assume we're going to use this list of stocks as our initial population to research. Let's add these stocks to a watch list. The watch list is great because now we have a static list of stocks that we can manipulate how we like. For example, we could add or remove tickers. This watch list consists of our 25 stocks. I'm going to add a particular stock called PACCAR. You'll notice I included it as part of one of my quotes. You can also see that it is bolded to identify it as a targeted ticker. This ticker met the screening criteria when I was initially preparing for the webinar, but now no longer because the market has been so volatile. You can see that quotes allows investors to target tickers to include into any research, a very powerful feature. Let's make more effective use of the real estate. Let's move on now and do a bit of research. We've narrowed down our population of stocks, and we are now looking at the layout, which consists of 3 panels. We'll use the spreadsheet-like table layout to research, categorize, and annotate stocks based on key metrics. We'll use the charts below for historical context, and we'll also leverage the powerful insight layout on the far right to delve into stock scoring, financials, analyst ratings, and news. These 3 panels combine to form the linchpin, if you will, for finding great stocks with Stock Rover. So let's start in the table layout. The table categorizes what metrics to compare and contrast based on views. I like to start with the fair value view. This view is quite informative because it's showing us our 26 stocks and their margin of safety, which is the percentage difference between a company's fair value, which is computed by Stock Rover based on a forecasted discounted cash flow analysis, and its stock's current price. You can always ask Stock Rover to explain the metric. For more detailed explanations as to what goes into computing fair value and margins of safety, I'd encourage you to head over to the stockrover.com blog post that describes how it works. Let's sort based on margin of safety. Let's take a closer look at Enbridge. It has a margin of safety of 46%, which tells me the stock is certainly not overpriced. I'll use the tooltip to get a higher level overview of what's going on. I can see the company has over $37 billion in sales. It sells for about 18 times earnings, and it's paying a dividend. I'd also like to learn a bit more, so let me switch to the valuation view. Again, we see a PE of about 18, but we also see that the PE adjusted is at, 66 times earnings. So company debt might be something we'll want to take a look at. So let's do this. I'll color the stock yellow. And we'll also want to add a comment, which I've pre-populated because my typing isn't all that great. So I have a comment in there that says, look more closely at how debt might be handled. Lastly, we'll add a tag because we want to look at the stock a little later on. So I'll tag it as look at later. So I can view it either way. So I can group the table as a tag. If I scroll down, we'll see we have look at later, and we've included that ticker. And we also have a tag for Packard called Deep Dive, very interesting. The Stock Rover's table layout's power isn't just that it displays a wealth of information in a tabular format, but it also lets you manipulate the data. So earlier I expressed some concerns over debt, so I want to quickly narrow down the field to research stocks with a PE adjusted less than 20. So let's filter. The ability to quickly manipulate what you're looking at natively in Stock Rover without having to export and further process the information is a huge time saver and unique to Stock Rover. You can quickly sort and save your criteria and then later come back to them and resume where you left off. Okay, so let's say I'm a value investor who goes by PE as one of my primary metrics. Let's sort the table by PE. Braemar Hotels, I'm not really interested in. I'm not interested in energy in the moment. But I haven't heard of this Packard company, and I don't know what they do. Let's see what the insight layout has to tell us. We can see with the description, they make Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks. We can see that they have a margin of safety and value scores that are really good, but the sentiment score is low. The sentiment score is calculated based on how much the market likes the stock. Let's chart the price. I typically go back a couple years. So they've had some bad times. They seem to be doing well in general, and there's a recent dip. Let's plot against the S&P benchmark and industry. we can see quite easily that PACCAR is currently outperforming the industry, but not the S&P 500. So let's narrow it down to just PACCAR again. Let's include earnings per share events. We can see that in general they're all positive events. But we have a dip here. We can see how positive earnings surprises up until July 2019 with a 2% miss. In the Insight layout, we can quickly see that a few years ago their growth was subpar. But things have been getting better. There's lots of good information in the Insight summary that's presented clearly and concisely. If we look at estimates, we can see that the sales growth estimates are negative 12.7%. This is something I want to investigate in my research, so I could add a comment. Valuation looks promising. Investigate why sales growth is poor for the next year. As I indicated before, I'm a value investor, so let's look at valuation. The 5-year PE range is from 9 to 46, so the stock is trading near the bottom of its 5-year range. Let's chart the PE over the last 5 years. I'm also interested in seeing the max drawdown. We can see that after their bad quarter, they must have taken some charges, but once that aged out, the PE has steadily dropped. So perhaps the stock is ripe for recovery, or we might want to jump in. We can see that the worst period of time was a 33.5% drop in January of 2016. If we go to the growth section of Insights, we can look at PACCAR's sales growth versus the industry. It's consistently growing a bit less than the industry, so it seems to be a more mature company, but that's not such a bad thing. I'm a value investor looking for a mature company that's going to pay out good dividends. If we look at profitability, we can see that although growth isn't as good as the industry's, that PACCAR has a better net margin, return on assets, and return on equity. So it's probably in a stronger financial situation over its peers. Let's say we'd like to delve even deeper into what's going on. We can go to the research links. We'd want to look at the earnings call transcript and investigate why they had an earnings miss. The earnings per share tab delivers quite a bit of useful information. I'll again want to do some more homework as I look at the soft Q3 and Q4 numbers here for both sales and earnings. Although the 2019 earnings per share eclipses 2018. I like stocks that pay dividends. I can see that PACCAR is on track for an 18% increase over last year. Notice the big drop in 2016. That's an unusual drop. Not many companies cut their dividends that badly. Perhaps this is something about the industry, maybe it's cyclical, so I want to take a closer look at that. Given the earnings miss, I fully expect that the analysts will probably recommend a hold. And I see an average target price of $71.90. I also want to see what others are saying, so I can go to the news. All right, so I'm interested in the stock, but I want it a little cheaper. So let's change our view here to buy and target price. Notice I can add thresholds for buy and sell for any of the stocks I'm researching or own. This happens to be a watch list, but the Stock Rover table layout could just as well be populated with stocks that you've linked to Stock Rover through your brokerage connections. So let's set a target price, a buy price of 60. I'm a busy person. I want Stock Rover to alert me when car hits that buy price. So let's go to alerts. Price falls below 60. I'll have it email me. We can see that pretty much anything we could ever want or need to know about a stock or a set of stock is at our fingertips. That Stock Rover, although extremely powerful, is actually easy to use. The navigation is quick, clean, and simple. So let's summarize how you go about finding great stocks with Stock Rover. The first thing you'll want to do is identify a screener from Stock Rover or the Stock Rover library that mirrors your investment goals. Remember, you can use the Stock Rover screeners as is or update an existing screener to better match your goals or create your own from scratch. After you run the screener and generate a list of candidates, you'll want to refine what stocks you'd like to research in more depth using the table layout. It's from the table that you can research, categorize, and annotate stocks based on key metrics. Once you have identified the stocks to research, you'll leverage Stock Rover's charts to gain valuable insights and historical context. Now, in the interest of time, we didn't cover the myriad of options and capabilities built into Stock Rover's charting. For that, you'll want to go to the Help section of Stock Rover and select Videos. Now, there are a number of charting videos there that can help you learn much more about graphing events, technicals, and fundamentals. The Insight panel delivers a wealth of information in a clear and concise fashion. It's here that you can quickly take advantage of Stock Rover's scorings, its earnings and sales estimates, dividends, financial statements, analyst information, and news. Thank you for watching our webinar.